Each year we have 2 salvation opportunities for kids. Obviously, they can accept Christ whenever, but we do give them 2 opportunities where we really connect with them and reach out just a little bit further. So on Wednesday, we will be talking about the Easter story, and we'll be sharing about how Jesus died for us and how he rose again for us because he loves us that much. And so we will give kids an opportunity to close their eyes, to raise their hand if they really feel like they would like to ask Jesus to be their forever friend. At that time, if you have a child raise their hand in the group, we ask that you quietly note it, so that then afterwards we're going to have an extra 20 minutes of worship in the sanctuary where you guys can go out and take those kids one at a time out to somewhere in the grass, somewhere in the craft area, where you guys can then connect with them one-on-one. During that time, we have these awesome wordless books for you. So they're really cool. In the past, we've done pins that are connected to you, and these are basically the same thing, except it's a bracelet now, so nobody has to poke themselves. But it's really cool, and it's got a card with it that actually tells you what all the colors mean. But we wanted to train you on what that looks like before you are in that situation with a child, so you can feel confident. So basically, this is the wordless book, and if a child accepts Christ, you get to give this bracelet to them, and then we get to put this card in their craft bag, which will be addressed at another time in this training. But you guys get to put this card in their craft bag so they can take it home and know exactly what choice they made, and so they can explain this to other people too. So this bracelet, it has lots of different colors on it. Let's see if you can see it there. Focus. There we go. So we have lots of different colors. We have black at the top, and black is basically our sin. The fact is, ever since Adam and Eve, we are not perfect. We sin every single day. I have sinned today, and that's just who we are. We are all sinners. And so next color is red, and red is about Jesus's blood. Because we have sinned, God sent his son. He sent this beautiful promise that he talked about years and years before, that he would send somebody to save us. And so he sent his son, Jesus, to die for us on the cross. And as soon as he died for us, this perfect person in this world who never sinned, who never did anything wrong, we are now able to go to heaven. So what happens is next is blue. If you choose to ask Jesus to be your forever friend, you have faith in something that you haven't seen. You have faith in something that you believe in your heart is real. You get to become white as snow. You get to be clean. All those sins are washed away, and it is so beautiful. Then next after that is green. The story doesn't end when you accept Christ. That's really the beginning of our journey. And so at that point, God has called us to grow in him. That's why it's green, because green is like grass and trees. They grow. And so God wants us to grow in him. He wants us to grow in our knowledge about God. He wants us to grow in how close we are with him. He wants us to get to know him because he is our Father and he loves us. And so that's what green is. Then there's yellow, and yellow represents heaven. Because after we die one day, if you ask Jesus to be your forever friend, you get to go to heaven. And it is this beautiful, perfect place where we get to worship God forever. And so by raising your hand, by asking Jesus to be your forever friend, you get to go to heaven one day, and you get to be white as snow, and you get to grow closer to him and get to know him that much more. And then after explaining that and seeing if they understand that, you can ask them to repeat it back to you. You can ask them if that's something they would like to be a part of it, or ask them questions about how does that make them feel, because some kids may hear that but it doesn't quite make sense. So before I even go into this, whenever I get to connect with a child, the first thing I ask them is, so I saw you raised your hand. Tell me about that. Why did you raise your hand? You're gonna get some kids that are gonna say, I saw somebody else do it, or, oh, I thought you told me to. Because in the prayer we will say to raise their hand, but we're saying to raise your hand if you want to ask Jesus to be your forever friend. Sometimes they miss that if part. So if you have a child that says that, you can kind of gauge the conversation on if you feel like you can go further into it, then awesome. If you feel like they're like, okay, they have no idea what we're talking about right now, that's okay. That doesn't mean God's not going to work through them later on in life. That just means they're not ready at this point right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. So first I always ask them why they raise their hand. And if they have no idea, then we move on. But if they have an idea, you get to go through this word list book with them. And if they get it, you get to give one to them and tell them that this is theirs. And you can put it on their wrist and put it on there to fit their wrist. So we do have a decision card, and this is 4 of them on one, so it's not that intimidating. But basically on the card, we do ask that you write the child's first and last name, because we do have multiple kids with the same name. And so if you just write John, we're going to have no idea what John it is. We do ask that you put your team name on there for Buddy Bears. The SGL name is your name. And then mark anything that applies, whether it's their first time decision, whether they're recommitting their life. And a lot of times a recommitment is because they have prayed the prayer every year at Buddy Bears, but now this is the year that they finally get it. I know a lot of times, like for example, my daughter, she raised her hand in Cubbies all 3 years, but her last year in Cubbies was the year that it finally made sense. It was finally true to her heart. And I know that because last year at Buddy Bears, when she was a Teddy, she didn't raise her hand. And I asked her why, and she said, well, I already asked Jesus to be my friend forever. I don't need to ask him again. I was like, okay, it makes sense. So you may have that kid that recommits just because it didn't fully make sense before, and that is perfectly fine. Then we want to know if they attend BNC, if they attend another church, or if they're unchurched. Mainly because we do have a lot of kids that were like, oh great, none of these buddies came back this year to church. But a lot of them do attend other churches, and that is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter where they're worshiping God as long as they are worshiping God. But we do want to connect with them if they are unchurched, because we would love to invite them back. And then it asks if they need a Bible, because any kid who accepts Christ, we want to be able to provide them with a Bible. So we do have Bibles that any parent will be able to grab, but we really want to make sure we connect it with the kids. If you say they don't have a Bible and they need one, we do have these Bibles. They're not super, super kid friendly. If a parent is looking for a Bible, you can let them know that there are a lot of really good Bibles for kids that are super colorful with lots of pictures, but we do have a Bible for them. Those ones are just a lot more expensive. And so that's a choice that they can make as a family, and that's totally fine. But as long as they have the Word of God, that's what's important. And if they don't touch it for a while, that's totally fine. But we want to be able to give them a resource, because we don't know what God's going to do with this. So we do have those for them. We do also have a book for kids that says I'm a Christian now, for younger kids and for older kids. These are really for Teddies and Buddies. It's going to be a little bit over the head for a preschooler, but they're activity books that parents can do with their kids. So if you do have a parent who picks up their child, you share that awesome news that they've accepted Christ, let them know that we have a resource table by the gate as they check out, and that they can get any of these resources that they would like to have. So we're not going to give them to every parent, because they are kind of expensive, so we don't want to give it to them if they're not going to use it. But we do have these available for anybody who wants them. We want to give them to them. The final thing, which is where this decision card is important to fill out, is we do also give a button, a pin, to every child who accepts Christ. Now, in the past, we actually printed on these the kid's name, and it was kind of tedious, but more than that, we also didn't get them to all the kids by the end of the week, and then we missed some kids, and it a lot going on. So we still want to be able to give the pin because we think it's a really cool thing. Like if you've ever seen the Disneyland pins that say like first time, like it's a super cute pin that's themed to the year of Buddy Bears. And it basically says that they've accepted Christ. And then on the back of it, when you fill out the decision card, the coach is going to write the child's name on the back of it so that then they can get it back. The parent will know if they have more than one child who it was, and that way they can get it to them. And it's a really cool keepsake to be able to hold on to. I still have my daughters and I absolutely love it. So basically they will get that written on them by the end of the day. So we want to get those decision cards to the coaches after they fill it out. And then they will be able to get the pin to the child by the end of the day. So that way we don't have to do any waiting now.